Moving along though, United Motorsports moment of the week, dude. How can you pick just one? RV with all the drama and the 250, 450, but nonetheless, that Webb and Sexton battle was absolutely insane. And from
Yes,
your
it
point of
was.
view, like what was that? It was unreal, huh? They both
Yeah,
rode it. Right? They
it was
both
good.
rode
It
incredible.
was really it was awesome to watch, right? Like Coop putting in decent laps, but then early, and then making mistakes, falling back, but then putting on that late moto charge, and was able to make up the ground on Chase, and then Chase's late moto charge, as we're watching right here on the replay. If Coop wouldn't have hugged that inside, and then we're talking tight on top of those tough blocks, that would have been a different story in that last turn. As you could see, that Chase was so far outside, coming open that turn up so far, he was going to be able to sneak underneath very easily if Coop did not hold his line and go super tight up against the tough blocks. But that is what, you've said it a thousand times, Ricky. The way Coop races, the way his race craft, knowing where people are on that last lap. If he would have left an inch open off of that inside tough block, I think Chase would have made a run up the inside there, either tangling with Coop, or just finding a hole to get a wheel on him. But it was gonna happen if
Oh, I
didn't know.
thought he was, dude, I thought he was, regardless of there being no room, RV, I'm like, dude, this guy's gonna go wholesale and go over the tough block, and just if he takes them both out, he takes them both out. I literally thought that. And then at the last second, boom, he goes to the outside. I thought he was going from, it's like, yeah, I thought he was.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. Chase was going, he was moving in there, and then at the last second, you could see him like no room, and then has to
Yeah.
peel out because he was coming in too hot. And then Coop just really slowed down to make that turn really, really tight. So, like I said, just the racecraft, where his ability to know where riders are on the track, and
It's
race so
insane.
smart. It's impressive to see,
Yeah.
because, like I said, if he would have left, an inch more open, I think Chase would have stuck it in there.
Mhm.
And either they both would have went down, because Chase had generated a bunch of speed down that straightaway, and you can see it. Like I said, that last second, him peeling out, he was coming in hot.
Yeah. Oh, dude, he was. UnitedMotorsports.com/title 24. Head over there, enter your email, and you get a $15 credit for your first order once you sign up. And then you'll be automatically entered into their weekly drawing for $50 credit towards your next purchase. So make sure you do that. But that's for the United Motorsports moment of the week. United Motorsports making it happen. Appreciate that. A lot of fan questions, RV. I can't wait to hear your insight. First off would be Corey 100, and he's part of the SMX track crew. Great guy. He runs the skid steer a lot.
Yep.
Does a fantastic job. He asks, how would RV and RC deal with Webb's mental toughness and master level racecraft?
There it is. We just talked
Ooh.
about that.
Yeah,
It's
we did. So I want to know, RV, without giving too much, because there's a couple other questions in here. Actually, the next one that you're gonna have to answer is gonna be similar. Like what would be your just kind of low key strategy, baseline strategy right now to beat a guy like that?
it's tough. I thought Chase rode an amazing race.
He did. He did.
Didn't make a ton of mistakes. He just didn't have enough, right? Like Coop, I think what was interesting, or what was really good to see, was when Coop made that little mistake. He obviously dropped back. He got past a couple positions, but he was able to regroup, and that's really hard to do. To be in a position like that. Okay, like make a mistake, get passed by a couple guys, regroup, knowing that you have a 20-minute main event that you can hopefully remount a charge. So like if you're Chase coming into this situation, and it's looking at that race Saturday night, he really couldn't have done a whole lot different. Like, right, he didn't make his
No.
I'll say it, he didn't make a bunch of big mistakes like he had in the past, where he let that race go. Right, that race was his till the checkered flag,
Yeah.
and he held tough with Coop.
Yeah.
I
He
think
did.
Yeah,
He
he
did.
did. And in that position, you got to go back and say, I think from a fan's perspective, and where I sit on the couch watching, like to me, that was a hell of a race by Chase.
Hell
I
yeah, it
put it
was.
all out on the.
Absolute dude. They
Yeah.
both rode at the elite level, and just Coop happened to win. Like, that's what I was saying on the broadcast, RV. I'm like, dude, you can't take a damn thing away from Chase. He rode phenomenally. He
Yep.
did. I mean,
Yep.
it was just like your hardcore battles with your rivals, with me and MC, or me and Stu, and you and RV, you and Dunge. It's like
Yep.
it's just one of those, like, you just got beat that night, and it was not for poor performance. You just sometimes you're not the best guy. It's
Yep.
weird.
Yeah. 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 No. And before the start straight, like Chase, if he would have not tagged that 5-footer
5
where,
footer. Yeah.
yeah, that triple where he was landing on that 5-footer, I think, and you said it on the broadcast, Ricky, I think that if because he would have gone onto the tabletop at that point, on off into
Mhm.
that sweeper turn that comes down onto the
Yep.
start straight. I think with the speed that he generated through that rhythm section would have closed the gap enough to where maybe he could have got up next to him down the straightaway, and it would have been a different scenario coming into the last turn. But he did clip that landing, that 5-footer with the rear tire where he couldn't really. I think it was actually triple onto the tabletop is what it was.
Yep.
After that, but no, you can't take anything away from Chase. Chase rode a
No.
phenomenal race, and so did Cooper that night. Coop just got the best of Chase.
Yep.
From the
He did.
mental side standpoint, I think you got to realize that too. Yeah, it sucks if you're Chase like that. That's definitely trying to kind of takes the wind out of your sails.
Yeah.
Um,
You know what though? I said this on the post race, SMX Insider post race shows. Like, I try to put myself in this position, and I want you to put yourself in this position, taking all accounts into effect. As far as the mental side, you never want your main competitor to get you and beat you anytime. But uh, how good they were riding, RV, and like they both were perfect. Yeah, they both made a couple mistakes here and there, whatever, but it equaled out. Like, you can't beat yourself up too much on the mental side, because number one, like, I would have been like, well, Reedy rode great or Stu rode great, and man, I just needed to be a little bit better over here. I didn't lose this race from a mental error. I kind of got beat, so I'm okay with that. And you know what? Maybe my bike could have done this a little bit better. Maybe I could have taken this line. I don't think it's as much of a mental loss as maybe some might think, just because it was so tight and they both rode so well. That's the way that I look at it. Like, I would have come off the track saying, well, this guy was a little bit better over here. It wasn't just because I got beat straight up. That's why I think mentally it wasn't as much of a mental loss as it was just a physical loss
yep.
compared to some of the other defeats.
Well, and I think too that the typical situation there would have been Chase making a mistake under that much pressure. And he didn't. So I would look at the positive from that. Like, yes, like you just said, just straight up just lost the race, maybe because I was, a little slower over here or vice versa, whatever it was, why that happened. But the race was close enough to know that to look from my standpoint, like, okay, well, if this would have been 6-8 weeks ago or last year or whatever, like I would have been waiting for that mistake to happen from Chase, but he didn't. So I think that was a huge gain for him from a mental side, but also as from the racing side. Like, okay, Coop didn't run away. I was able to bridge the gap on the last lap too to catch him, and put myself in a position. It just didn't happen. So I think that between the two of them, Chase, obviously, I think he can't go back home and beat himself up too bad. I think that he lost that race, but I think it was a solid race for him, and vice versa with Coop. Obviously, ended up on top, a couple extra points. That's huge for him also. So I think it was from the two as they both sit. Then you couldn't take anything away from both of them. They both rode a solid night on Saturday night, and it's just setting us up to have just an amazing end to this SMX season.
Going off script here, but as I was reading through our fan questions, and I really like this, we had one winner picked out, but I'm like, man, this is just this one I feel like could just take the cake, and it opens up to, and furthermore extends the discussion that we're having, RV. And the Quad Lock question winner of the week, if you haven't, go to quadlockcase.com. We appreciate all you guys' support. They're dabbling in F1, making a pretty damn big appearance over there, so congratulations to everyone at Quad Lock behind the scenes. You guys are growing and love it. Our winner this week is Matt _ Hindi _2. Appreciate you coming in and posing a question to Title 24, and thanks for being a supporter of RV and I and the podcast. But Matt asks, do you think Coop can be beaten with his current mindset? We all know he performs under pressure.
Yep. And yes, I think he can be beat with his current mindset. I think the thing that Chase has going for him is he's got that raw speed, right? Like I think on any given night, Chase is the fastest rider on the track with the current field that we have. Mm-hmm. So right there, you got to give it to him. Like there's a chance every night he has a chance because he's typically one of the fastest guys. So that's the first box that has to be checked. Am I in the position from a speed perspective to be able to win? So you check that box, and yes, typically he is. Where we've seen him in the past falter or make mistakes, it's a mistake issue, right? So yes, I think that Coop can be beat, and we've seen it happen before. Chase had an amazing weekend a week ago. Winning two of the three triple crowns and ended up second. So he gets the overall. In Moto3, he ended up second. So I think that yes, Coop can be beat. Now we all know he's tough. He's mentally tough. And that's tough for a guy like Chase to be in that position, knowing how mentally tough your competitor is. But like I said, checking that speed for the box for speed, he's got it. So that's the first thing that has to be done, because I don't care how consistent you are. If you don't have the speed, then you can't even get up front with those guys.
Yeah, dude, you couldn't have. I mean, no one could have answered that any better. I had on my notes right here, and I just love this question because people say, well, how do you do it? How do you do it? And so when you have a guy like Coop, who is as mentally astute as he is and strong, and, and that's helped carry him. He's fast, also very fast, savvy on lines, and really good at main event time when it's points paying time. And I wrote here, I said, yeah, so you have to be as good as him mentally. If you can parallel him on the mental side, okay, so now you're good. Now, like for Chase, majority of the time, he is the fastest guy, like you said. So if he is somehow able to bridge that gap mentally and eliminate those mistakes that he's made in the past, I feel like that's how you beat the guy, is because you already have the speed. And to me, I mean, it's easy for me to say that, and I don't want to speak for you. And you chime in whenever you want. I think for us, it's easy to say like, well, speed is the hardest thing to find. Like for me, it was because I had my mental side of the game locked down, right? And I feel like you did too. And so for us, I feel like the hardest thing to find would have been the speed, whereas like it's reverse. I feel like for Chase, because he has so much speed. But maybe,
and they're
right?
both tough to find, right? They're both completely different, but they're both very, very, very hard to find. I think, and I think they're almost equal to as hard to find, especially when you show up on Saturday morning and you have only a short amount of time to learn the track, jump the jumps, get those feelings that you need to feel, and I think that. I think they're both equally as hard to find. And we're dealing with just two completely different riders, right? Like we know that Coop in the past hasn't been the fastest, but he's won a lot of races not being the fastest because of his mental toughness. And then vice versa, Chase has won a lot of races because he's been the fastest. Which out of those two, if you had to pick, RC,
Yeah.
What do you think is the hardest? Is it finding that mental strength mid-season, or is it finding that speed mid-season?
Oh, for me, for sure, RV is the speed. And the reason that I say that is because kind of like what we were talking about is like the mental side. I'm like, all right, like I know where I'm at. I know what my ability is, and if I do it right, I'll have a great shot to win. But when you talk about speed, then it would put me in a position where I wasn't comfortable. And an example of that would be like in '03 when I sucked in the whoops. Like I just had like a mental I had a mental block of wanting to be safe. I know I'm saying I got the mental game strong, but like I just didn't feel comfortable going fast because I didn't want to take the risk of going down. And that was the hardest thing for me, knowing like, dude, if I go faster, I'm going to bust my ass here. And
Yep.
so that I just always felt like the speed side of things for me, it was hard. You know,
Yep.
it was just hard for me and that on that side of things. So that for me, that would be the hardest for me in this situation is
Yep.
finding speed.
Yeah, and I think in all these, the like Seattle, for example, very tough condition, and to find speed with that dirt, meaning how rough or how ruddy it was. We've both raced there many times, and we ended up with a really good racetrack Saturday night. But don't let the broadcast fool you. Like the ruts were deep. I guarantee you there was some spots on that track that the dirt was pumping. Where it's real marshmallow feeling. But SMX Track Crew, obviously, like you talked about, rolled it in before and then covered it. That's huge. But I think it's definitely different. I think that they're both dealing with something a little bit different. And
Yeah.
and I would have to say speed wasn't necessarily. Yeah, sure, James. There was nights that James was definitely clearly the fastest guy compared to the rest of the field when I was racing. But then I could rely on just certain tracks, the way they were built, or certain sections where, you could almost anticipate a mistake from
Oh yeah.
Stu.
Hmm.
Um, and
Yep.
that's where I had to stay in my lane and do me. And sometimes it worked out where he would make a mistake or push the front and go down. And there's other nights that it didn't work out and James would straight up win. But those are the times you have to know when to hold them and fold them.
Yeah, but that's where you are like guys like yourself, multi-time champions, multi, I should say. Um, that's where I feel like it gets tough for people like to knowing and having the discipline and the willpower to pull back when you have to. And I don't know that a lot of people have that ability to do that because it's so hard to do that to just say, all right, I'm holding them tonight. You know what I
Yep.
mean? I don't have it. And I think that's tough, man. I think that's
It
tough.
is.
Mentally, it's tough. And some people don't ever find out how to do it. Some people do, but you're right. You're
Yep.
right.
Yeah. I mean, there's a scenario. I don't know what year it was, but Anaheim, one of the Anaheim races, I was racing James, and there was a double quad in a rhythm section. I hit it. James pulled it out last lap of practice. It was and we were jumping to they were like 3 footers, real steep 3 footers. And he
Oof.
had uncorking this quad in the middle of at the end of practice in the middle of this rhythm section. Well, I didn't do it in heat race. I ended up pulling the trigger in the main event twice. I did it, but the second time tagged it pretty hard. I had to fold them.
Yeah.
I wasn't willing to risk hitting that triple or that quad for 20 laps. Well, James went on to win that night.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that you have to know and be okay with that to know when to fold them because it's a long series. I know what we're talking about currently is we're running down towards the end of the series. So there is a time where, not letting these guys get away or not letting Coop get away where sometimes you can't fold them. Sometimes you got to hold them and you got to run.
Um, I have a similar story to that. It was Atlanta. I believe it was '06. If it wasn't '06, it was '07. But there was a rhythm section after the finish line. You turn, and I think there was like 2 3 footers and then a tabletop, and the backside of the tabletop was like straight down, right? RV.
Real
And then
steep.
after that, you could quad or triple into the corner, whatever. And I had saw that he was kind of eyeing it up, and it was one of those same scenario. And now, granted, I'm towards the end of my career, or if it was '06, I just can't. My mind, I can't bring it back which year it was, but I remember saying, "Dude, I'm not doing that." So,
Yeah.
like, because if I miss, it's death, bro. Like, it's over. If I tag the backside of that tabletop, I my night's over, and possibly the championship. And dude, we'd race the section, and I'd be right on him. It was a hell of a battle. It was a fun night of racing. And we get to that section, and he'd just like he would uncork it and then gone. I'm like, then I'd have to haul ass and race back up to him and make up time for the rest of the track. And he ended up beating me. And I've had this conversation with him, like, dude, like I was a wimp. I didn't want to do it. It's stuff like that where you got to know, you got to play the long game. And that's where I think Coop is good. And I
Yep.
think that's where I think on the mental side of things, he's just so strong. And his pace, although he might not always have the raw speed that Chase has, sometimes that can work for you, and
Yeah.
sometimes it
Yeah.
can work against you. And it's times like what RV and I are telling you.
Hi, folks. Lee Diffie from NBC Sports here. If you truly enjoyed what you just watched, you can get more news, interviews, and highlights by subscribing to the Motorsports on NBC YouTube page. You can get it all, so go for it.